guys, so welcome to the next live class. This is March's live class and it's all about color theory, which is one of my favorite topics to ramble on about. And if you're familiar with my videos, you have probably heard me just spewing color theory information in a good portion of them and just kind of explaining my color choices just for different designs. But the goal here is getting it so that everyone is confident with choosing colors, because it's not as easy as it may seem, and especially some people just have a knack for seeing it and can just, look and see, okay, well, this color would go with this one and this color would go with that one. But that's not the case for everyone. And so if you're somebody that just does not see the color theory and you just can't look at a color wheel and it all makes sense, then maybe this class will help you. I hope so. And if anybody has any questions throughout the way, I will be keeping my eye on the live chat. So please share them with me. I'm here to help, and asking questions of me throughout the chat or in the chat just makes it so that you can make the most out of these live classes. So first off, as you can see, I have just the color wheel there. And if you're unfamiliar with the color wheel, and this one is a little bit different than most because a lot of times they don't have the gradations from the lightest color to the darkest color throughout the color wheel. And I do have that there because that's something that we'll kind of talk about throughout the video. So if you are interested, keep on watching. So the first thing that's kind of a basic color theory term is primary colors. And you'll hear me say that, I'm sure, throughout this whole live stream. So your primary colors are red, blue, and yellow. So those are the three colors that cannot be mixed, is basically what it means. So if you have the color red, that has to come from a pure red pigment. You can't mix two other colors to get red. Same thing with yellow and blue. Your next set of colors is your secondary colors. Hello, everybody. And so secondary colors are violet, green, and orange, and those are made by mixing equal parts of two primary colors. So if you look at your color wheel and you look at orange, then if you split it halfway, between orange and violet, the color is red, and halfway between orange and green, it's yellow. So the yellow and the red mixed together make orange. And then red and blue make violet, blue and yellow make green. And that kind of just basic knowledge for mixing paint is super beneficial if you are planning on doing any artsy stuff and you want to mix your own paint. And it's something that doesn't come up as often because there are so many different mediums that come in 1,000 different colors that paint mixing is almost becoming a moot point, because you don't have to. If you just have enough colors, you can just grab the one you need and you can skip the mixing. But it's a skill that is just so necessary that if you don't have it, you're gonna regret it. So just knowing some of those basic paint mixing, and we'll go all over paint mixing at the end of the video too. So then the next set is a tertiary color, and that's a little bit less kind of need to know, I guess, but just since we're here anyway, that's going to be red orange, red violet, blue violet, blue green, yellow orange. And anytime you say a tertiary color, you're going to start by saying the primary color and then the secondary color. So instead of saying orange red, you're going to say red orange. And what a tertiary color is it's halfway between a primary and a secondary on a color wheel. So it's halfway between orange and red if it's a red orange. Should be pretty self-explanatory, but we're just going to go through everything like we have no idea anything about color theory. The next one is your neutral colors. So neutral colors aren't on that traditional color wheel. Those are anything that's on like the brown color scale, and then grays and black and white. And neutral colors are something that a lot of people have trouble mixing, not the gray scale so much, but the browns. And in this video in the paint mixing, or maybe a little bit before the paint mixing, I'm going to give you my best tips for mixing brown, because I've heard a lot of people say that you can't mix brown, or it's really hard to mix brown, or how do you mix brown? And it's very easy. It actually is one of the colors that I am least afraid to mix, if you can say that I'm afraid to mix colors, because I think it is just something that once you kind of know the recipe, it's easy as could be. All right, so next we're gonna really get into choosing colors, which I think is the main focus that I wanna do for this video, less on paint mixing, which we will touch on, but mostly on what colors to choose when you're looking at a design. And here's the kind of scenario that we're gonna be playing with throughout this whole video. Client comes to you, and if you're not somebody that works with clients, just bear with me. Client comes to you and says, I want this color that I have right here. I love this color. I have a dress that's this color, but I just want an accent nail. You can do whatever you want. And you're sitting there and you go, an accent nail, do whatever I want. What's going to go with that color? Oh my goodness, what do I do? That's where we're going with this. Or they come and they say, I like that color and do something floral on the other nail. You think, okay, floral with that color. Oh geez, what do I do? This is where this is coming in because there are options. There are so many options for what you can do. And we're going to go through all of the basic color theory. And in my email blast that I sent for this class, I said we're going to go through color theory shapes. And there's a better way to phrase that, but that's just kind of the way I think about it is shapes. When you're looking at your color wheel, you have these shapes. So the first one, the one that I used most often, or that I use most often, is complementary colors. In my videos, you'll hear me say the word opposite colors because I think that's just an easier way to explain it. And there's a lot of people that don't have any color theory backing, and it's a lot easier to look at a color wheel and think opposite than to think complementary because complementary to me almost seems like they should be right next to each other, not all the way across the color wheel. So a lot of times you'll hear me say opposite, even though that isn't really the correct way to put it. So complementary. And the best thing to think of for complementary is that it's extreme, it's drastic, it's dramatic, and a lot of times it's going to make one color stand out significantly. So here's our little nail set that we have to play with here. So our hypothetical client chose this super bright kind of coral pink color, and then you're thinking opposite colors. So the opposite side of your color wheel is going to be a blue-green, and that's going to be this background color, this teal color. But then, if you look at that color wheel I have up on the screen, you can see that that blue-green has a scale. It has fairly light, and then it also goes down, or goes to, if I can hold it, fairly dark. So, if you look at these two, this is the only time I have this in more than one, where I have a tint and I have a shade of the color to show you guys. And I think it's something that is really just incredibly important to think about. So, this nail, it's the same basic color. We still have an opposite going on. But the flowers are beautiful. You can see them, but they aren't vibrant. They don't stand out and they're not like that. Hey, look at me, I'm a flower. But on this one, they do that. And that's because the flowers are light. They're white with that really bright peachy pink color. And then the background is the really dark teal. And so if you want something to really, really stand out and it's something that is light or bright, use a dark color to pair with it in whatever the design is. If you want it to just be a nice background and have everything just kind of flow together and look kind of very elegant and clean, then you're going to want to try to go similar in your color. So if you have a bright color for your main focal point, you want a bright color for your background. So that's just something to think about. And it's the same thing if you have something that you're painting and it's very dark. And so you say your main color is this dark green and you want a background color that's just going to make that dark green really stand out. Do it, make it bright, make it light. Because the more difference between the color, and it can even go from your tone to your shade or your tint to your shade, the more vast the difference is, the more eye-catching that focal point is. And sometimes you want that and sometimes you don't. And it depends on personal style, depends on preference, depends on client. So those are just a great little visual, I think. And I did a whole bunch of nails in this exact same pattern to show you guys the different color options. So there's that first one. So now the next color theory, or the next thing, is split complementary. And this is one that I use a lot, and it's something that you almost don't even necessarily know that you're seeing because sometimes it's very subtle. But what split complementary means is that you have your main focal color on one side of the color wheel. Then you draw the line across the color wheel to the opposite side, to the complementary, and then you just split it apart a little bit. So instead of having, one color for the background that is that teal color, maybe you have one that is a little bit more blue and one that's a little bit more green. And basically the idea of this is it just makes it a little bit more interesting. If you want to take a little bit more time and do something else, or say you want to have a very basic leafy pattern in the background in this particular design, and then have two different colors in the background, but you still want that first original color to stand out. So usually for split complementary, the color that is kind of on its own, so that orange in my color wheel on the side, that's the color that's really going to stand out. So then if we go back to my little thing here, for my split complementary, I have a green and blue gradient in the background, and it's just such a pretty, very soft combination. And then I have my peachy pink flowers. So as you can see, the flowers are still going to stand out the most because they're against that complementary color background, but it's a split complementary, so it's just a little bit more interesting. And the reason to choose this one over just a complementary is it just gives the design a little bit more dimension. It just makes it slightly more interesting. But otherwise, it's pretty much going to be the same thing as your complementary as far as, visual catching of your eye. New terminology for me. So now the next one is triadic. So that's where you have 3 points on your color wheel. And this one I would say is one of my least used and least preferred options. I do use it on occasion. I think, the more you do things, the more designs you do, you're going to end up using all of these because it just happens whether you want to or not, or even whether you're trying to or not. It's just going to happen. So typically, when you have a triadic color scheme, every color that you're choosing is going to play an equal role in, the visual focal point. It's just because they're all split, nothing really stands out drastically from the rest unless you have 2 of the colors that are significantly darker than the third one or one that's significantly darker and you play around with the shading. But if they're all about the same place as far as how much black or white is in them, then they're on an even playing field. So for my triadic color scheme, I have this nice dark green for my, this is a little bit backwards. Let me fix that. Bring that up to the top. It's not going to do it. Oh, there we go. There we go. Triadic. So I've got I used orange for my color wheels, and my color ended up being a bit more pink. But I've got this pink color, and then it shifts everything a little bit. So then it becomes a little bit more blue. And then my green is more of this yellow green that's darker. So like I said, if you have one that is darker, like my dark green, it's going to make the other 2 stand out more. So that's what I did for this one. Otherwise, usually the triadic just seems a very smooth background. It's really great for different patterns if you want it to just kind of be smooth, like paisley patterns you see a lot in a triadic color scheme, unless they're monochrome. But otherwise, this is a good option for you if you want something that just isn't quite as dramatic. And this one in this particular set is probably my least favorite. And so there we have that one. So the next one is that we're going to be looking at is Tetradic, which is kind of funky to say. But that one is 4 colors, and it's actually what my nails are currently, and I'll show you guys to them. And there will be a tutorial for this design on Tuesday next week. But the Tetradic is for where there's 4 colors. So you have 2 sets of complementary colors, and they do not need to be in a square. My little depiction there is a square, but know that it's just 2 sets of complementary colors. So you have your 2 colors, and you're like, these are the 2 I'm going with. I need something as a background to go with them. And then you go across the color wheel, find an opposite, grab your other primary, or not primary, but focal color, go across the color wheel, find the opposite, and that is your tetradic theme. And you're going to have a square or a rectangle of some variety. Square is usually what you see when you hear or you look at a tetradic color scheme. It's usually a perfect square, but it doesn't have to be. In fact, I think it's more fun when it isn't, but that is what this is. So then for that, let me put the nail in. I added leaves to this one because usually when you have a tetradic, it's because there's more pattern there. You wouldn't necessarily just do all of that just on this little flower. And so I've got my purple color, opposite color will be green. And then my pinky orange color, opposite is going to be the blue. So that's where this one came into play. And then for my nails, like I said, they're in that same color scheme. So I've got the green, and then the opposite for the greens are going to be the pinky flowers here. And then the opposite for, I've got the orange, and then I've got blue in these flowers too. That's just a whole bunch of, I just have a fun floral pattern on my nails, but that's going to be a tetradic. So this is a very real example of where this color scheme can come into play. And it's just really fun to see it in a practical, depiction here. So as you can see, there's a lot happening on my nails. There's a lot of pattern, but it does follow into this same color theme. So now the next one we're going to do is a Novelist. And that one is basically a very fancy way of saying colors that are just right within a wedge of your color wheel. And this wedge can be really small. It can be 2 colors. It can be yellow and orange, or you can spread it out and make it wider. But it's all colors that just go right along the line in a color wheel. And I love this. This is another one of my favorites to use besides complementary colors. I love to use Novelist schemes. And the reason I like to use this one is because it just looks so smooth. And there's a lot of times where you can do a design and it just looks very fluid and very smooth, and the differences between colors are subtle. A lot of times subtlety is kind of the name of the game with this one, especially if you have something that goes with it that's black or white and you have those neutral colors that bounce off of an analogous background. That's a great example of where this would come from, or any ombre design, or almost any ombre design is where this comes into play. And my computer is about to go dead and I thought it was plugged in, so let me plug that in quick. Or let me just, there we go. Now it should be, now it's charging. Oh, good. Okay, so like I said, Novelist you'll find in ombres galore. So the background to my split complementary is analogous because it's two colors that are right next to each other on your color wheel. So if you look at the one that I have picked out for analogous, okay, background is a really bright coral orange. My flower is more pink, and then the second flower is still orange, but it's more yellow orange. So we have that set of colors on our color wheel from, you know, the really yellow orange to more of a true orange to a pink orange. And that gives you just a really nice, like I said, it's more smooth looking. It's not as dramatic as this is by far. And sometimes you don't want that. So a lot of the things with choosing a color scheme comes down to what your goal is. And so the more dramatic you want the design to be, the more, you know, just opposite ends of the spectrum, the more you're going to want to lean towards something that's like your complementary or your triadic. And the more just kind of smooth and flowing from one color to the next is where you're going to want to stick with something like the Novelist that I just showed you, or monochromatic. And monochromatic designs, there's some confusion for what counts as monochromatic, because there's a lot of people that think monochromatic means it's just, you know, all colors within one color piece of your color wheel and then white or black. But the thing is there's a lot of variance within monochromatic, because by mixing in the color gray, you get some very different tones. And so if you mix gray with yellow, it almost goes green. If you mix gray with pink, it almost goes kind of purplish. It goes very mauve purple. And the reason that this makes a difference is you can do a monochromatic design, but have some more fun with it than you may think you can. And I remember in high school, I did a monochromatic painting, and I specifically chose yellow because of how much color variance you can get by mixing gray in with yellow. And while that may not seem like you'd want to do that on a nail because it turns this muddy yellow, green, baby puke color, there are times where you may want that. And keeping it all monochromatic has a very beautiful, very purposed effect, I think. It just looks like you took your time to create this design all within one color and just playing with the different elements of that one color and just sticking to a plan. So I really like monochromatic stuff. So for our monochromatic little flower design, I have this one. So my lightest color is going to be in here, but then we can still use the white. White is a great color to use for monochromatic. And then the darker version of my pinky orange, which is looking very purple on my camera. So it isn't, I apologize, but that's, and then that darkest, almost burgundy color in the background. Those all would fall into our monochromatic color scheme. So that's, like I said, that's just a great way, and it looks, I think it always looks more elegant. I think monochromatic might be the most elegant of the different options that you can go with. And I think that some of them are more playful and some of them are more subdued. They're just different emotions kind of that get embedded in these different color schemes. So when you have a client that sits down and they, you know, show you this color, I want this color, but do something as an accent nail. It's really great to know your client or yourself. And if you're somebody that really loves to just be out there and you love to do something that's really eye-catching and dramatic, then maybe go with a complementary. But if you want something that just looks very sophisticated, maybe go with a Novelist or the monochrome. And it just kind of depends on what you want to do is where you're going to go with this. And a lot of my designs, I talk about my color choices for the background because I think that's a huge decision. And there's many times with a more dynamic design that I'll choose a background color that's found within the design in a small amount. So that would be, I'm trying to think of a great example for that. Here, I've got one. We're going to go back up once. So this Sisu design that I recently did a video of, there's just little touches of pink in Sisu. It's more purple, but there's just in the original drawings of her, there's just little touches of pinky tones in her hair here. And so I went with a pink background. Plus, pink looks fantastic with the purple and blue, which ties it into the Novelist. And I think that that just fit with the fluidity of Sisu's movement. So that's where this background choice came into play. And that background is just absolutely gorgeous. And sometimes I just feel like using pink. But, you know, all in all, that's where that one came from. Now, if you want to see a real live depiction of a monochromatic design, we have this one, which will be uploaded in May. So it's a ways out. I'm working really far ahead right now. But this Marie from Aristocats design is monochromatic, except for there's one exception, which is the blue in her eyes. But everything else is just within the color pink, and or you know the whites and the grays, because you can use white, gray, and black to keep it monochrome. But that gives you a monochromatic design, which is perfect for Marie because she's all pink all the time. So there we have that. And don't worry about it, Sarah. Nobody spelled my name right. It's just how that goes. So there's that one. So now that we have all of our paint mixing, I just want to take a moment and have anybody, if they have any questions on choosing a color, because like I said, that's really what I want the focus point of this whole class to be, and I went through it really, really fast. And I know that there's probably a lot of things that maybe could be touched on again if anybody has any questions. And if you don't, then I'll give it just a few seconds. I'm gonna take a drink of water. So if you guys have anything that you're thinking of, you're like, oh, I was gonna ask this and then I just bulldozed right past it, let me know. And like I said, drink water because my throat's dying already. While we're waiting, just for a second, I'm going to show you guys my shirt because I was really hoping that it would show in the video, but it doesn't very well. I'm going to tip that down. Okay, so my shirt says the struggle is real, and it is a T-Rex that has his arm and he's trying to get into the lamp, but T-Rex, short arms, can't hardly get his arm into the lamp, so it cracks me up. And part of the reason why this shirt cracks me up so much is that my husband's name is Terrell, and he always says he has really short arms, so we call him T-Rex a lot. At least we used to. We haven't done that in a while, but it just was, I almost died when I saw this shirt. Another reason to mention this shirt is that this is a complementary color scheme. We have our T-Rex in the middle that's a very bright green, and then the light pink background. And putting them together makes the T-Rex stand out because the green is a much more intense color than the light tone of the background, so it makes him more vibrant. I wanted to mention that too. Plus, I just really like the shirt. So now that we've gone through that, and nobody's had any questions, but if you have any questions throughout the whole thing, or if at the end of it you have a question that pops up, then let me know. We can always hop back and answer anything as it turns up. But we're just going to start talking about paint mixing. And I love to mix paint. In fact, there's a lot of times where I mix a color when I wouldn't necessarily have to because I like the personalized element of it. And so if you don't mix paint and you may want to consider it, then here's some basic paint mixing color math. And hopefully nobody is fearful of arithmetic because this is very, the way I talk about it is very mathematically termed because I personally love math. So to get a secondary color, it's equal parts of two primary colors. And I did talk about that previously. So 1 part yellow, 1 part red, mix them together, you get orange. Now to get a tertiary color, it's 2 parts of 1 primary color and 1 part of a second primary color. So if we have 2 parts red, 1 part yellow, we mix those together, we're going to get red-orange because the red is going to be more powerful than the yellow that is not going to pull it all the way into orange. Another way to get a tertiary color is to mix a primary and secondary 1-to-1 ratio. Get a tertiary. Now, all that being said, generally the pigment in red and blue is more powerful than yellow. So even though it is 1 part and 1 part, it's never 1 part and 1 part, which is very confusing. Sorry. But when you're mixing, I always, and you're using yellow, I always start with yellow and add a little bit of either red or blue or whatever my other color is, just a little bit at a time until I get to the color that I want. Because if you add one part yellow, one part blue, the blue may not even change color at all because it may just soak in that yellow and still stay blue. So you just got to be a little cautious when you're mixing with yellow because it takes some time, or it doesn't take much of a different color to adjust the color of your yellow. So then the color recipe for making brown is going to be one part of a color and one part of its opposite color. So you have one part red, one part green, mix them together, you get brown. One part orange, one part blue, mix them together, you get brown. One part yellow, one part purple, brown. The reason that you should know all of those and not just one and always rely on red and green is because say you want a brown that's a certain tone. Say you're mixing somebody's skin tone and you look at them and their underlying flesh tone is very pink, very red. Then you're going to want to do the red and green. You're going to want to start with red and then mix in your green until you get to the shade that you want. Say you're mixing somebody's skin tone and they have a very olive skin tone. Then you're going to want to start with green and then slowly mix in your red. If you're looking at somebody's skin tone and they're fairly yellow undertoned, yellow, mix in your purple. And that's not just the case for skin tones. That's any type of just great, any type of browns if you have a certain color. So I painted an animal called a bongo. I don't know if anybody knows what that is, but it's a bongo. And he has orange-brown fur. So you would want to start with orange and then mix in your blue to get the brown tones. And soon I'm going to be painting an okapi. This isn't a mural I'm working on, which eventually the world will see. But I'm going to be painting an okapi probably this weekend. Full size, like life size okapi. And they have purple brown fur. So I'm going to start with purple and I'm going to slowly mix in just a little bit of yellow till I get the proper okapi color. So brown, like I said before, I said it was one of the most confusing colors to mix. And there's just so many undertones to brown that I think that's why it's like that. But when you get comfortable with mixing it, it's one of my favorite colors to mix because you can really customize it and really get it to be the exact shade that you're looking for. So now the next ones are pretty basic. A color plus white equals a tint. So if you need something to be more pastel, more lighter, add white. A color plus black equals a shade. If you need something to be darker, add in black. And then a color plus gray equals a tone. So the reason to be careful with mixing those is if you have a darker color and it's already got some black mixed in the pigment, if you have a paint that's got some black in it, and then you mix in white, you're not going to get a tint. You're not going to get a lighter version of the color like you might be thinking of. You're going to get a tone, which means the original pigment, whether it be blue, purple, red, green, what have you, is going to be diluted and it's going to be more gray tone. So if you're looking for a vibrant color and you have a dark color, you can't just add white. You have to be very careful, and then you actually have to remix the base color. So sometimes that can be very aggravating because you may not even know if it's that way. Like a lot of gel polishes, I have this one that we're going to be doing some paint mixing with. It actually looks like it's very dark, but it doesn't have any black in the pigment. If you play around with it and you add white, it's going to just get to be a light blue. It's not going to turn gray. But if it did happen to have any black in it, then instead of looking like a nice, pretty light sky blue, it would look gray, like a cloudy day. So that is a great little thing to just keep in mind. And sometimes it can be very discouraging when you're mixing paint if it doesn't go the way that you're thinking of. But if you just look at, I like to think of it as your pigment math or your color mixing math, and you try to figure out where it went wrong, then a lot of times that might help you fix it or know why it's not mixing the way that you think it should be mixing. So one thing, if you do have, just no luck mixing paint, there's this tool called a magic palette, and this is just a picture of one that I found off the internet, and they sell them at Michael's, Joann's, Hobby Lobby, etc. And it shows you on the left side and on the bottom different colors, and then if you follow the lines and you mix 50-50, it'll show you what color you'll get. So the way that you use it is you look in the middle of the magic palette and you say, I need this color. Then you're going to follow it to the left side and follow it down, and it'll tell you what colors to mix to get that color that you needed. That being said, it uses colors that are from a specific system, so if you don't have those exact colors, it may not work. exactly the way the magic palette intends, but I don't think they're very expensive, $5 to $10. So if it's something that you think would help you, I wouldn't hesitate to get one. And they're laminated. They're really durable and sturdy, or stirrable as I'm going to say it. And so if it's something that you think would help you, don't hesitate. I would just go get one because it's a nice little tool. And so then I just got a question, do I have any recommendations on brands that are great for mixing colors? Well, it depends on if are you talking about acrylic paint or gel polish. For gel polish, I really love Madam Glam. They're so pigmented, and they're just, the texture is really nice for mixing because it's not too thick. Some gel polishes are actually really thick, and those aren't going to mix very well. And then there's some like OPI where you can't hardly even get them mixed in the bottle just with the pigment that they come with. That's never fun. And so Madam Glams have a really nice stabilized mix. They have some really nice chemicals in there that keeps their pigment from settling. So they mix well because it does maintain that same color just from the bottle. Typically, you do have to stir them every once in a while or mix them, but that's my favorite for anything. I'm always pro Madam Glam because I do love their formulation. But then for acrylic paint, my favorite brand of acrylic paint for nails is Deco Arts Americana. Theirs is just a really nice thin color, and it mixes well. I mean, acrylic paint mix is all about the same, but I like the texture of this one just for working with. And then I got another question on how to make a color pop more. And as far as for mixing paint or for paint ideals for making color pop more, if it's a bright color, put a layer of white underneath it. So all of the little flower ones that I did had a layer of white underneath the flowers, and then I brushed some of the color from the inside of the petal out towards the edge. Anytime you put white under it, it's going to make it a lot more vibrant. And if you're talking about making a color pop more as far as what colors to pair with it, if it's a bright color, the complementary color that is darker. So a dark complementary is going to give you the most vibrant pop. So if you have orange that you're trying to make pop, it's going to be a dark blue. Or if you have yellow that you're trying to make pop, dark purple. So that's the great, that's like the basic, I want this color to stand out recipe is your color, and then the opposite side of the color wheel, find your complementary, and then make it dark. So we got our magic palette. So now we're going to mix some paint. So that dark, what I was just talking about is this right here. So we've got a really dark green, and then our pinky orange flower petals that are very bright with white underneath them. And that's going to give you the most kind of explosive pop of color that is out there. And something that I use a lot. I love how intense it makes it. But for mixing color, for mixing our paint, I have my little crystal palette here. We're going to be using 3 colors from Madam Glam to do this little demo. We have Perfect White, Perfect Black, and this is Perfect Black. It's just a really old bottle, so it doesn't say it. It says it has it on the bottom. And then this one is called NSFW. So those are the 4 that we're using. So I'm going to put down some of my blue, which is a very pretty bright blue. And I'm going to do it in 4 different, 3. Yeah. 1, 2, and 3. So we're going to make this our tint, our tone, and our shade, or not our shade, oh my goodness, yeah, plus black. Oh geez, you can tell I'm starting to lose it. Okay, so to make our first one here, I'm gonna add white. To make the tone, we're gonna add white and black. So there's 1 little drop of white. Now for our black, we're gonna put our black over here, and then a drop of black right there, and just a little bit of black, because black goes far. I know I threw it a lot down right there, but we won't use it all. So we've got all of our colors there for our paint mixing demo. So the reason that there are times when I've actually mixed a palette like this, and I've done all of these colors. If I'm trying to paint something and I'm going more realistic, so I've done that on certain times when I painted somebody's face, and I've just said, okay, I need all the colors I could possibly use here. So what I'm gonna do, we're gonna start here, we're gonna mix this together. Blue plus white is it's going to lighten our blue, and it's going to give us our tint, which is actually a really pretty color of blue. I don't have anything like that in my collection, which is unusual for me to say because I've got so many colors. And I use about 6 of them. That's pretty much how it goes. Is anybody else like that? You've got 1,000 different products and you use the same ones over and over and over again because you just can't help yourself? Okay, so there's that first one. So that is the tone. Now our tint. For our tone, first I'm gonna mix my gray. So you could do this straight from a gray. You won't have to start with black and white if you didn't want to, but we're gonna have our gray. And then we're going to add in our blue. And as you can see, it's a lot less vibrant. Maybe you guys can't see it, but it's a lot less vibrant. It's a lot more muted of a color. And if you wanted a lighter blue and you wanted it to be more muted and you mix this and you're like, oh, you know what, that's too bright. What you can do is you can just have a little bit of gray with it. So if you use a lighter gray, so we can make this a lighter version of that color. Add some more white. And then you can mix that in and we're gonna get a much different color. Because it's gonna be so much more subdued. I think it almost looks a little bit more green too, just by mixing gray with it instead of by mixing straight white. I'll put a little stripe of it over there. It's a lot different. I actually like that one better for a sky blue. I think it looks a little bit more dramatic. It's a little less sunny. All right. So now our last one is going to be our shade. And we've just got our color plus black. So if our original color that we had any white in it, when you mix your black in with it, it's not going to just get darker. It's going to look kind of muddied and subdued as well. So you're not going to get that nice, rich, dark color. You're going to get kind of a mess. But we got that. So that's our 3 colors. My lighting likes to make it hard to see wet gel, unfortunately. You guys get a good view of how that works. And so this is perfect to get all of these, and I actually like to make a palette like this of all of my different colors, because if I'm doing something where I'm going to need them, and I like to do it all ahead of time and just mix a full palette of what I'm going to need, because then once you get into it and you start painting, a lot of times, I know for me, I don't want to go back and remix or go back and start mixing again, because I've already gotten into it. I'm in the zone for painting, and so you don't want to just kind of go backwards and kind of retreat. So there is that. Does anybody have any questions? I'm just going to kind of recap our class, and if anybody has any questions about what we've covered so far, please don't hesitate to let me know. Thank you guys for everyone that has joined me, and definitely Lynn, if it's 3:35 a.m., go to bed. You can watch my live later. And you didn't send the comment twice. I had to approve it for some reason, so that's why that one didn't show up. But yeah, if anybody has any questions, please let me know, or even later in the comments, or if you guys have any questions afterwards on a private message type system. And if you're not part of my email blast, this one specifically, I did actually send in a little kind of a cheat sheet. I sent out my little color wheel that I used throughout this whole video, just in case anybody wanted to have it next to them to look at throughout the whole thing, because I thought that might be helpful. And so, Sarah, yeah, you don't think you'll be able to mix the same color twice if you run out? No, it's not easy. The best thing to do in that case, especially if you have it and it's all cured, is sometimes the colors change minutely when they're curing, is to keep very close track of what you're doing and count drops of color. But no, it's not easy to remix the same color. And I've done some color matching things when I've done some repairs on different heirlooms around the house, and it's not too fun to have to mix an exact color. But eventually, if you have enough patience and some, desire, you can get it done. But yeah, if anybody has any questions, and like I said, if you want to get part of my email blast, then send me an email to hotpinkzebrapolish@hotmail.com, and then you'll get those little visual aids ahead of time in your email, as well as a date and time for when the class is going to be, and just some overview of what we're going to cover in the class. And then also, one thing that I haven't mentioned before is if you guys are part of that email thing and you see a subject that we're going to be covering in the next class and you have a question ahead of time, like if you saw this color theory class and there was just a question that's been eating away at your mind and you want to make sure that I cover it, reply to the email and just tell me, I love color theory, but I've never been able to pick a color that's a good background in photographs. That would have been a great question for this class. If that was one that anybody has been, wondering about, that would have been an option. But any questions that you guys have throughout, then that for the classes, that's a great way to get them to me ahead of time. And then I'll make sure that I do cover them, because sometimes you have a question and then you forget it by the time you get to the live class. And I know that that's happened. So if you ever think of one, or if anybody has live class suggestions or ideas, send those to me as well. I have a list going. It's got about 15 different live classes that I have planned, so it'll keep me busy for a while, but any others, I'm not necessarily taking them in the order that I have them written down. And one other thing, in about a week, I will be posting not a video on YouTube, but just a post on YouTube with a poll for the next live class. So this color theory live class was chosen by poll because I had all about 3D bows, which I actually was super excited about and was kind of bummed that that one wasn't the one that won, because I was like, I want to make some bows. But 3D bows was one of them, and then the color theory, and then a character breakdown. And the character breakdown is a class that has been requested of me just previously, as far as when I've done different character videos, like doing that Sisu. A lot of times people say, can you just tell me how you break down a character to even know how to begin? And that's what that class is going to be about. So yeah, I'm excited for all the future live classes, and I hope you guys are as excited as I am. If you have any questions about this class, don't hesitate to reach out, and don't forget to sign up for the email blast as well, because it's good to just have the information ahead of time so that by the time the class rolls around, we're all on the same page. So there we have it, and if the character breakdown does get to be the next class, I'm going to send out some pictures of the characters we're going to be working on. So there's all that fun stuff. So yeah, I had a great time. This class is a little shorter, but I think we covered maybe some more important information than the previous two classes. If you did miss those previous two classes, I can direct you towards links for them. I can throw them in the description box below for this video. So check those out too. Those acrylic basics and gel basics. So there we have it. Thank you guys so much for joining me. I'm always so excited, and hello to everyone. I know that I've been getting comments saying hi. I've read them all, I promise. And every time I get something or somebody's just saying hi, I get so excited because I love the participation. So yeah, I guess I will see you guys in the next one. See you later.